The Night Librarian of Bloomsbury, a magical sleep story set in modern London. There's a particular quality to London at twilight in November. The air carries a crispness that makes everything feel just a little bit sharper, a little more alive. The street lamps along Marchmont Street begin their slow amber awakening, one by one, like sleepy eyes opening to greet the evening. If you were walking there now, you'd notice how the light from the shops, the corner cafe, the small grocer with its bins of seasonal vegetables, the pharmacy with its glowing green cross spills out onto the wet pavement in pools of gold and white. Tonight, we're going to follow someone along this street. Her name is Eleanor Moss, though most people simply call her Ellie. She's 37, works as a copy editor for a small publishing house, and lives in a narrow flat on the third floor of a Victorian conversion just off Russell Square. She has brown hair that's always escaping from whatever clip or tie she's attempted to contain it with, and she wears the same camel-coloured wool coat nearly every day from October through March. Because it has deep pockets and feels like being hugged, Ellie is walking home from the British Library, where she's spent the past 3 hours in the reading room, checking references for a historical novel about the Bloomsbury Group. She does this, sometimes stays late at the library, not because she has to, but because she finds the quiet hum of scholarship soothing, the soft shuffling of pages turning, the occasional thoughtful sigh from a nearby desk. The way time seems to move differently there, stretching out like honey. She turns off Marchmont Street onto a smaller road. Not quite an alley, but not quite a proper street either. It's one of those in-between places that London is full of passages and lanes that appear on some maps but not others, that locals use as shortcuts and visitors never quite notice. This one is called Periwinkle Court, though there's no sign to tell you so. You'd only know if you lived nearby, or if someone had shown you. The buildings here lean in toward each other across the narrow space, their brick faces dark with age and weather. At street level, there's a laundrette that's always closed when Ellie passes, a door that might lead to flats or offices she's never quite sure, and a small shop window that she's walked by hundreds of times without really looking at. Tonight, though something makes her stop, the window is lit from within by a warm, buttery glow. Ellie can't quite remember if it's usually lit or not. Inside, she can see shelves. Books, she thinks at first, which would make sense in Bloomsbury. But as she steps closer, her breath making small clouds in the cold air, she realizes they're not exactly books. Or not only books. There are books, yes, old ones, with cracked leather spines, newer paperbacks with bent corners, thin volumes that might be poetry or plays. But there are also jars, glass jars of different sizes, lined up on shelves like preserves in a pantry. Some appear to be empty. Some contain what looks like coloured water-deep blues, soft greens, a pale pink like the inside of a shell. One jar seems to hold something that moves, though when Ellie focuses on it directly, whatever she thought she saw becomes still. Above the window, in faded gold lettering that's flaking at the edges, are the words, Farers and Co-Purveyors of Stories and Remedies, EST, 1847. Ellie has never noticed this shop before. She's certain of it. She walks this way for sometimes 5 times a week, and she's the sort of person who notices things. The pattern of moss growing between paving stones, the tortoiseshell cat that sits in a particular windowsill on Tuesday afternoons, the way the light changes in Russell Square as autumn deepens toward winter. But here it is, this shop that seems to have simply appeared, or perhaps that she is only just now capable of seeing. She finds herself reaching for the door handle. It's brass, worn smooth by countless hands, and shaped like a sleeping fox. When she pushes, the door opens with a gentle chime, not the electronic beep of modern shops, but the soft ring of an actual bell, the kind with a clapper inside it. The smell hits her first. It's the scent of old paper, yes, but also of something else. Bergamot and honey, with smoke and rain. Underneath it all, something green and growing. Like a garden in early spring. The shop is larger inside than the window suggested it would be. Much larger. The ceiling is high, crossed with dark beams, and the shelves seem to go back and back, disappearing into a gentle dimness that the warm lamps scattered throughout can't quite penetrate. There's a table near the front, displaying books with handwritten cards beside them, describing their contents. An armchair sits in one corner, its velvet upholstery, the color of forest moss, with a small reading lamp arched over it like a friendly giraffe. Behind a curved wooden counter stands a woman. She's perhaps 60, perhaps 80, it's hard to tell. Her silver hair is swept up in a complicated arrangement that shouldn't work, but somehow does. And she wears a cardigan the color of twilight over a dress printed with tiny birds. Her glasses hang on a chain around her neck, and when she looks up at Ellie, her eyes are a very clear, warm grey. "Good evening," she says, and her voice has a quality to it, like the lower notes of a cello. "You look as though you've had a long day." Ellie realizes this is true. Her shoulders are tight, her feet ache in her sensible boots, and there's a small headache building behind her eyes, the kind she gets from staring at computer screens for too long. Rather, she admits, though she didn't mean to. Something about this place, about this woman, invites honesty. The woman nods, as if this confirms something she already suspected. "Are you looking for anything in particular, or are you browsing?" Ellie isn't sure how to answer. She wasn't looking for anything, really. She didn't even know this shop existed until 3 minutes ago. But now that she's here, she finds she doesn't want to leave just yet. It's warm. It's quiet. It feels, somehow, like coming home to a place she's never been. "I'm not sure," she says. "What sort of shop is this, exactly?" The woman considers the question as if no one has ever asked her before, or as if the answer might be different depending on who's asking. "We deal in stories," she says finally, "and in the things that help stories happen. Beginnings and endings. The quiet bits in between. The words you need but haven't found yet." She moves out from behind the counter, and Ellie notices she's wearing very soft-looking slippers. The kind that make no sound at all on the wooden floor. "My name is Margot Ferris," she says. "My great-great-grandfather opened this shop in 1847. He was a bookseller, but also something of a listener, I suppose you'd say. People would come to him with their troubles, their questions, their hopes, and he'd find them the right book. Sometimes it would be exactly what they asked for. Sometimes it would be something quite different, but always what they needed." She pauses by a shelf and runs her finger along the spines of several volumes, not looking at Ellie, but somehow still very much speaking to her. He discovered that sometimes people needed more than books. They needed the feeling a book could give them, but faster, more directly. So he began experimenting. Distilling, you might say. Capturing the essence of stories in other forms. "The jars," Ellie says, understanding beginning to dawn. "The jars," Margot confirms, and smiles, "among other things. Would you like some tea?" I was just about to make a pot. And here's where Ellie should probably say no. Should probably thank this strange, kind woman and leave this impossible shop and return to her flat. To her sensible evening of leftover soup and emails and maybe an episode of something on Netflix before bed. But instead, she finds herself saying, yes, I'd like that very much. Part 2. The tea and the telling Margot disappears through a doorway behind the counter. One that Ellie hadn't noticed before. It's partially hidden by a curtain made of something that shimmers not aggressively. not like sequins or glitter, but the way water catches light, or the way a pigeon's neck flashes purple and green in the sun. Left alone, Ellie allows herself to really look around. The books on the nearest shelf are an odd collection. She sees a penguin paperback of Mrs. Dalloway next to what appears to be a leather-bound grimoire, next to a cookbook called Comfort Food for Rainy Tuesdays, next to a children's picture book about an elephant who couldn't sleep. There's no obvious organizing principle, not alphabetical, not by subject, not by color or size. But somehow, looking at them, Ellie feels they belong exactly where they are, as if they've been arranged not by category, but by some invisible thread of meaning that connects them. She moves closer to the wall where the jars are kept. Up close, she can see that each one has a label, though the handwriting is old-fashioned and not always easy to read. Some are written in ink that looks brown with age. Others appear newer, written in what might be fountain pen. One jar, filled with something that looks like golden syrup catching sunlight, reads, "The feeling of summer evenings that last forever, June 1968. Another, containing what appears to be ordinary water, but which seems to hold tiny points of light suspended within it, says First Snow Wonder, various years. A third, quite small, holds something dark and rich like blackberry juice. The satisfaction of finishing a good book on a train journey collected. They're beautiful, aren't they?" Ellie startles slightly. She hadn't heard Margot return, but there she is, carrying a wooden tray with 2 cups of tea, a small pot, a jug of milk, and a plate of biscuits that look homemade. Shortbread, by the look of them, with what might be lavender pressed into the top of each one. "I don't understand them," Ellie admits, "but yes, they're beautiful." Margot sets the tray down on a small table between 2 chairs near the window chairs. Ellie is almost certain weren't there a moment ago. They're wing-backed and comfortable-looking, upholstered in fabric the color of autumn leaves. "Sit," Margot says gently. It's not quite a command, not quite an invitation. Something in between. Ellie sits. The tea, when Margot pours it, is dark and fragrant. It smells like Earl Grey, but also like something else. Something that reminds Ellie of her grandmother's house, though she can't quite place what. Margot adds milk to her own cup, but leaves Ellie's black, somehow knowing without asking that this is how she prefers it. "My great-great-grandfather," Margot begins, settling into her chair with her tea cupped between her hands, believed that stories are living things. Not metaphorically, you understand. Actually alive. They breathe and grow and change as they move from person to person. When you read a book, you're not just receiving information. You're having an experience, and that experience creates something real inside you. A feeling, a memory, a possibility. She pauses to sip her tea, and Ellie finds herself leaning forward slightly. Not wanting to miss a word, he began to wonder, Margot continues, whether it was possible to capture those feelings directly, to save them the way you might save seeds from a garden for next year's planting. So he experimented. He would read a book, really read it, the way you read when you're young and can lose yourself completely, and then, while that feeling was still fresh and strong inside him, he would try to ... Well, to pour it into water, pour a feeling into water. Ellie hears the skepticism in her own voice, but it's gentle. She's not disbelieving, exactly, just trying to understand. "I know how it sounds," Margot says, and her smile is warm, untroubled. "And I can't explain the mechanism of it. I only know that it worked. Some feelings went into the water, others into honey, or oil, or wine. Each feeling seemed to know what it needed to live in, and once they were captured, they could be kept, shared, given to someone who needed exactly that feeling at exactly that moment. She gestures toward the jars on the wall with her teacup. Over the years, we've collected quite a few. Some I've made myself. Some were made by my mother, my grandmother, my great-uncle Thomas, who had a particular gift for capturing the feeling of coming home. Each one is a distilled story, the essence of a particular kind of happiness, or peace, or hope. Ellie takes a biscuit without really thinking about it, bites into it. It's buttery and crumbles slightly, and the lavender is subtle, just enough to make it interesting. Outside the window, full darkness has fallen. The street is quiet, and the lamplight makes the wet pavement shine like patterned leather. "What do you do with them?" she asks. "The feelings in the jars, I mean. Do you sell them?" "Sometimes," Margot says, though that's not quite the right word. People come in, people like you, who notice the shop when they need to, and I help them find what they're looking for. Sometimes it's a book. Sometimes it's a jar. Sometimes it's just the tea and the conversation. She looks at Ellie with those clear grey eyes, and Ellie has the distinct sensation of being seen, really seen, in a way that's both unsettling and comforting. "You're tired," Margot observes. "Not just today. A deeper kind, the kind that comes from pushing yourself forward without quite knowing where you're going." Ellie opens her mouth to protest, then closes it, because it's true. She's been tired for months now, maybe longer. The kind of tiredness that sleep doesn't fix, because it's not really about sleep at all. "I have a jar," Margot says slowly, "that might interest you. It's not a cure, you understand. These things never are. But sometimes a little help, a little replenishment, can make the difference between giving up and carrying on." She rises from her chair, still silent in those soft slippers, and moves to the wall of jars. Her fingers trace along the shelves, not quite touching, as if she's sensing rather than looking. Finally, she stops at a jar about the size of an apple. Inside is something that looks like morning mist, or like light caught in a bottle, constantly shifting but never settling into any particular form. "This one," she says, bringing it back to where Ellie sits. "It's called the relief of letting something go. Made from a story about a woman who carried a heavy stone in her pocket for years, believing she needed to, until one day she simply set it down by the side of a river and walked away lighter." Ellie stares at the jar. In the lamplight, the mist inside seems to pulse very gently, like slow breathing. "What do I do with it?" she whispers. "You could open it," Margot says. "Just for a moment. Let the feeling out, breathe it in. It won't solve everything, but it might remind you that some things don't need to be carried quite so tightly." She places the jar on the table between them, within Ellie's reach, but not forced upon her. The choice, clearly, is entirely Ellie's to make. Outside, a train rumbles somewhere in the distance, heading toward King's Cross or St. Pancras. Someone walks past the window, their footsteps quick and purposeful. Already home in their mind, even if their body hasn't arrived yet, and Ellie sits with her tea growing cool in her hands, looking at a jar that contains something impossible in a shop that shouldn't exist, feeling more at peace than she has in a very long time. "I think," she says finally, "I'd like to come back. If that's allowed. Not necessarily for the jar, not yet, anyway, but just to sit here, to talk, to understand this better." Margot's smile is like sunlight breaking through clouds. "The shop is here whenever you need it," she says. "That's rather how it works. You won't always see it. Sometimes you'll walk right past and never notice. But when you need it, truly need it will be here. And so will I." They sit in comfortable silence then, finishing their tea while the evening deepens outside and the shop seems to grow quieter still, settling into itself like a cat curling up for sleep. Part 3. The walk home and the quiet noticing when Ellie finally leaves the shop after another cup of tea and a gentle conversation about nothing in particular. Just the weather and the way London changes in November, and whether the foxes in Russell Square have gotten bolder this year. She finds that time has done something strange. According to her phone, it's only been 20 minutes since she turned down Periwinkle Court. 20 minutes, though it felt like an hour at least. But she's learned, in the past 20 minutes, not to question certain impossibilities too closely. The air outside feels different now. Still cold, still November, but somehow kinder. Or perhaps she's simply more awake to it. The dampness doesn't seep into her bones the way it usually does. The darkness doesn't feel oppressive. It feels, instead, like a soft blanket, like the kind of darkness that's comfortable and safe. She walks slowly back toward her flat, taking her time. There's no rush. Her leftover soup will still be there in 20 minutes or 40. Her emails will still need answering tomorrow, whether she checks them tonight or not. At the corner of Marchmont Street, she passes the small grocer that's still open, its warm light spilling out onto the pavement. The owner, Mr. Patel, who's been there for as long as Ellie has lived in the neighborhoods, arranging oranges in a pyramid display. He looks up as she passes and raises a hand in greeting. "Good evening, Miss Moss," he calls out. He's never called her by name before. She's been a customer for 3 years, buying milk and bread and the occasional bunch of flowers, but always their exchanges have been polite and anonymous. "Lovely night, isn't it?" "It is," Ellie says, and realizes she means it. It really is. She continues walking and finds herself noticing things she normally walks right past. The way someone has arranged smooth pebbles on a windowsill in a spiral pattern. The small brass plaque on a building that reads "Founded 1782" that she's never registered before. A catginger with white paws like socks sitting in a doorway, watching the street with that particular intensity that cats have, as if they can see things humans miss. The cat blinks at her slowly, and Ellie finds herself stopping. Crouching down, "Hello," she says softly. The cat considers this greeting, then stands, stretches with elaborate carefront paws extended, back arched, tail quivering at the tip hand pads over to her. It butts its head against her outstretched hand. Purring like a small engine, Ellie strokes its head, scratches behind its ears, and the cat's purr deepens. There's something meditative about the simple exchange. The cat wants nothing from her except this moment of connection. No agenda, no complexity, just warmth and touch and the basic satisfaction of two living creatures acknowledging each other. "You're very handsome," Ellie tells the cat seriously. The cat, accepting this as no more than its due, allows a few more moments of attention before deciding it has other business to attend to. It walks away with its tail held high, disappearing around a corner, and Ellie straightens up, smiling to herself. When did she last stop to pet a cat? When did she last pause in her walk home to notice anything at all beyond the fastest route from point A to point B? She can't remember. Her flat, when she reaches it, looks exactly as she left it this morning. The breakfast dishes were still in the sink, just a bowl and a mug, but she'd been running late and hadn't washed them. The stack of manuscripts on the small table she uses as a desk, waiting for her attention. The throw blanket on the sofa, crumpled where she'd sat last night, working on her laptop until her eyes ached. But somehow, walking in now, it doesn't feel like a burden. It just feels like a space. Her space, a little messy, a little cluttered, but fundamentally hers. And that's all right. She puts her bag down, hangs her coat on the hook by the door, fills the kettle for another cup of tea, a third of the evening, but who's counting? While the water heats, she washes the breakfast dishes. The warm water on her hands feels good. The simple task of washing and rinsing and setting them in the drying rack feels oddly satisfying. She makes her tea chamomile this time, with a spoonful of honey, and carries it to the sofa. But instead of immediately opening her laptop or reaching for her phone, she simply sits, holding the warm cup. Look out the window at the building across the way, where lights glow in various windows like an advent calendar. In one window, she can see a couple cooking together, moving around each other with the easy choreography of long familiarity. In another, someone is doing yoga or stretching, their silhouette bending and reaching. In a third, a child's mobile turns slowly, casting shadows on the ceiling. She can't see the child, but she knows they're there, being put to bed, being read to, being tucked in safely. All these lives happening simultaneously. All these small, quiet moments that make up the real texture of existence. Not the big events, the dramatic turning points, but this, the cooking of dinner, the stretching of tired muscles. The reading of bedtime stories. Ellie sips her tea and feels something loosening in her chest. She's been so focused on what she should be doing, where she should be going, whether she's achieving enough, progressing enough, being enough. But sitting here now, watching the ordinary magic of evening in a city full of people, she thinks maybe she's been asking the wrong questions. Maybe the question isn't, am I doing enough? But am I paying attention? Maybe the question isn't, where am I going? But where am I now? She thinks about Margot in her impossible shop, with her jars of captured feelings, and her great-great-grandfather who believed stories were alive. She thinks about the jar offered to her, the relief of letting something go, and realizes that even without opening it, something has shifted. Or perhaps she's shifted. Perhaps being seen by someone like Margot, being offered something without pressure to take it, being given permission to simply be tired without needing to immediately fix it. Perhaps that was its own kind of magic. Her phone buzzes on the coffee table. A notification. An email, probably. Something from work, or a newsletter she's subscribed to, or a message from her mother asking if she'll be coming home for Christmas this year, and has she met anyone nice lately. Ellie looks at it for a moment, then deliberately doesn't pick it up. Instead, she reaches for the book on the coffee table, a novel she's been reading in 5-minute increments before bed. Never quite able to sink into it, because she's always thinking about tomorrow. She opens it to her bookmarked page and begins to read. The story is about a woman who inherits a cottage in Cornwall and spends a summer there, learning to garden. It's quiet and gentle, not much plot to speak of. Just the daily rhythm of weeding and planting, walking on the beach, getting to know the locals. The kind of book that doesn't demand anything from you, just invites you to spend time in a slower, softer world. Ellie reads one page, then another. The words wash over her like gentle waves. She's not analyzing them, not looking for errors or thinking about how she would edit them. She's just reading, the way she used to read when she was young, before reading became work. Outside, the November darkness deepens. A light rain begins to fall, so fine it's almost mist, pattering softly against the window. Somewhere in the building, someone is playing music, classical, something with piano, muffled by walls and distance, but still audible. Peaceful. Ellie reads another page, and then another. Her tea grows cool beside her. The throw blanket is within reach, and after a while, she pulls it over her legs without putting the book down. The words continue their gentle flow, carrying her along like a leaf on a stream, and slowly, so slowly, she doesn't quite notice when it happens. The tightness in her shoulders begins to ease. The small headache behind her eyes fades away. The endless list of things she should be doing, should be worrying about, should be planning for, it's still there, but it's quieter now. Further away, It can wait until tomorrow. For now, there's just this. The warmth of the blanket, the sound of rain, the soft music from somewhere else, the story unfolding across the pages in her hands. And outside, somewhere in the November night, a shop that shouldn't exist is still there, its warm lights glowing in the darkness, waiting for the next person who needs to find it. Ellie turns another page and keeps reading. Part 4. The Tuesday morning, and the small courage. Ellie wakes the next morning to her alarm. As usual, but something is different. For one thing, she's actually slept. Properly slept, the kind of deep, dreamless sleep that leaves you feeling refreshed, rather than groggily dragging yourself through fog toward consciousness. For another thing, when she opens her eyes, her first thought isn't about all the things she needs to do. It's about the quality of light coming through her curtains, soft and grey. The light of a cloudy morning that promises no drama. Just a steady, gentle sort of day. She lies there for a moment, something she never allows herself. There's always been this urgency to get up, get moving, get on with things. But this morning, she gave herself 2 minutes, just 2, to lie in her warm bed and notice how comfortable it is, how the weight of the duvet feels like being held. When she does get up, she makes her bed. This is new. She usually leaves it rumpled, telling herself she'll straighten it later, which she never does. But this morning, she takes the time to shake out the duvet, arrange the pillows, and smooth everything down. It takes perhaps 90 seconds, and when it's done, the room looks calmer somehow. More intentional. She makes breakfast, just grabbing a banana to eat on the way, but actual breakfast. Scrambled eggs with a pinch of the dried herbs she bought months ago and never used. A slice of toast with butter and jam. A pot of coffee, not because she needs the caffeine to function, but because she enjoys the ritual of it. She eats at her small table instead of standing by the counter. Looks out the window while she chews. Watches a pigeon land on the railing across the way, preen its feathers with meticulous care, then fly off again. Notices how the light catches the wet pavement below, making it shine. It's only as she's washing her breakfast dishes immediately, not leaving them for later, that she realizes what's happening. She's not rushing. The urgency that usually drives her through her mornings. The low-level anxiety that whispers she's already behind, already failing, already not enough, still there. But it's quieter. More like background music than a blaring alarm. She thinks about the shop, about Margot, about the jar she didn't take, and she wonders if maybe the magic wasn't in the jar at all. Maybe the magic was in being seen, in being given permission to be tired, in having someone acknowledge that carrying heavy things is hard work, and sometimes the bravest thing you can do is set them down. The morning passes in its usual way. Manuscripts, the careful work of checking facts and smoothing sentences. But Ellie finds herself taking breaks. Not long ones, just moments here and there. 5 minutes to make fresh tea. 3 minutes to stand by the window and watch the street below. 2 minutes to stretch her back and roll her shoulders. Each small pause is like taking a breath. After holding it too long, around noon, her phone rings. It's Sarah, her friend from university, who she hasn't properly talked to in months, despite exchanging occasional text messages decorated with promises to meet up soon. Normally, Ellie would let it go to voicemail. She's working, after all. She doesn't have time for a long chat. She'll call back later, except she never does, and later becomes next week, becomes I'm so sorry it's been ages. But today, something makes her pick up. Sarah, hallo, Ellie. God, I didn't actually expect you to answer. Sarah's voice is warm, surprised, delighted. Are you in the middle of something? I can call back. No, Ellie says, and realizes it's true. No now is good. How are you? And just like that, they're talking. Really talking, not just exchanging headlines and emotions. Sarah tells her about the pottery class she's started taking on Thursday evenings. How terrible she is at centering clay, but how much she loves the feel of it in her hands. The way it demands total attention so her mind can't wander to work, stress, or relationship worries, or the general background hum of modern anxiety. Ellie tells her about the shop, though as she's describing it, she wonders if Sarah will think she's lost her mind. A shop that appears when you need it. Jars containing feelings distilled from stories. But Sarah doesn't laugh or question. She just listens with that particular quality of attention that means she's really hearing, not just waiting for her turn to talk. That sounds like something out of a fairy tale, Sarah says when Ellie finishes. The good kind, though. The kind where the magic is actually helpful, instead of causing problems that need sorting out. I think it might be, Ellie agrees, though I'm still not entirely sure it was real. I mean, objectively real. But it felt real, which maybe is the same thing. I think feeling real probably counts for a lot, Sarah says thoughtfully. Listen, I know we always say we should meet up, and then we don't. But what if we actually did? What if we picked a date right now and put it in our calendars? This is usually where Ellie would demur, would say something vague about checking her schedule and getting back to her, would let the moment slip away because commitment feels like pressure, and pressure feels like burden, and she's already carrying too much. But today, she hears herself saying, what about Saturday? We could get lunch somewhere. Maybe walk in Regent's Park if the weather holds. There's a brief pause, and then Sarah's voice comes back, warm with pleasure. Really, actually Saturday. Ellie, that would be lovely. Yes, let's do it. Let's actually do it. They make plans. Real plans, with a time and a place. Sarah suggests a cafe in Primrose Hill that does excellent soup and even better bread. They agreed to meet at 1 o'clock. They both put it in their calendars while still on the phone, confirming it to each other like a pact. When they hang up, Ellie sits looking at her phone for a moment. Saturday at 1 p.m, lunch with Sarah. Such a small thing. Such an ordinary thing, but it feels like a victory. She returns to her work, but finds her attention wandering after a while. Not in the usual distracted way, where she's refreshing news sites or scrolling through social media. Instead, she finds herself thinking about the book she was reading last night. The Woman in Cornwall with Her Garden. Ellie wants to know what happens next, even though nothing much is happening. Or rather, everything is happening, just quietly. On impulse, and Ellie is not usually an impulsive person. She closes her laptop. It's only too. She has more work she should do, but it can wait. It will all still be there tomorrow, and the day after that, and the day after that. It always is. She puts on her coat, the camel-colored one with the deep pockets, and decides to go for a walk. Not anywhere in particular. Not to accomplish anything or check anything off her list. Just to walk. Outside, the afternoon is cool and grey, threatening rain, but not yet delivering on the threat. The clouds are low and heavy, moving slowly across the sky like great ships. Ellie walks toward Russell Square, her hands in her pockets, her pace unhurried. The square is quiet at this time of day. A few people sitting on benches, despite the cold, bundled up in scarves and woolly hats. A man throwing a ball for a terrier, who races after it with disproportionate enthusiasm. 2 elderly women walking arm in arm, moving slowly, talking in a language Ellie doesn't recognize, but that sounds musical and soft. She finds an empty bench and sits down. The wood is cold through her coat, but not unbearably so. She watches the square, watches the people, watches the trees with their last few stubborn leaves clinging on, and she thinks about Margot's great-great-grandfather, who believed stories were alive, who thought that feelings could be captured and kept and shared, who saw that people needed more than just information or entertainment. They needed to feel less alone in their particular joys and sorrows. Sitting here on this bench, watching ordinary life unfold in all its quiet variety, Ellie thinks she understands. Because this is a kind of story too, isn't it? Not the dramatic kind, not the kind with plot twists and climaxes and resolutions, but the kind that's made of moments, the kind that's happening all the time, all around. In every life simultaneously, the terrier brings the ball back to its owner and drops it at his feet, panting happily, ready to go again. The old women reach the end of their circuit and turn to go around once more. A robin lands on a nearby branch, its red breast bright against the grey day, and sings a small, questioning song. And Ellie sits on her cold bench and feels, inexplicably, held. Not by anything she can name, just held. By the bench, by the square, by the city, by the afternoon itself, by all the invisible threads that connect every person and moment, and story into something larger than any individual part. She doesn't know how long she sits there, long enough that her fingers start to get cold even in her pockets, long enough that the robin flies away and the terrier's owner heads for home and the sky grows a shade darker dot when she finally stands. Her legs are a bit stiff from sitting still, but her mind feels clearer than it has in months. She walks home slowly, and as she passes Periwinkle Court, she glances down it, almost without thinking. The shop isn't visible today. Just the laundrette, the mysterious door, and what appears to be a blank wall where she remembers the window being. She stops, peers closer, but there's definitely nothing there. She's not disappointed, though. Margot said the shop would be there when she needed it. And the truth is, right now, she doesn't. Right now, she has everything she needs: a friend to see on Saturday, a book waiting at home, a square full of quiet life, and the strange, gentle knowledge that some things don't need to be carried quite so tightly. She continues walking, and if she's smiling to herself, well, there's no one around to ask why. Part 5, Saturday Lunch and the Art of Being Present Saturday, arrives with pale sunlight and a crispness in the air that promises autumn is finally giving way to winter. Ellie wakes without an alarm, which is itself a small luxury. She lies in bed for a few moments, watching dust motes drift through the shaft of light coming between her curtains, thinking about nothing in particular when she gets up. She moves through her morning routine with the same gentle attention. She's been practicing all week. Coffee, toast, the news on the radio, kept low so it's just pleasant background murmur rather than urgent catastrophe. She even takes time to choose what to wear, which she normally doesn't bother with on weekends. Usually it's just whatever is clean and comfortable. But today she picks a burgundy sweater she's always liked but rarely wears. And her good jeans, the ones that fit properly. She's ready too early, of course. It's only noon, and she's not meeting Sarah until 1. But instead of fidgeting around the flat, finding small tasks to fill the time, she decides to walk slowly. Take the long route, maybe stop for a coffee on the way. The streets of Bloomsbury are quieter on Saturdays, with fewer of the weekday workers hurrying between offices and meetings. Instead, there are tourists consulting maps, students carrying backpacks full of library books, couples walking hand in hand, families with small children who stop every few feet to examine something fascinating on the ground. Ellie walks at their pace today, not rushing past, not silently willing people to move faster, just walking, part of the flow. She stops at a small coffee shop she's passed 100 times but never entered one of those independent places with mismatched furniture and plants in the windows and a chalkboard menu written in careful handwriting. She orders a flat white and sits at a small table by the window, watching people pass by outside. The coffee is excellent. Rich and smooth, served in a proper ceramic cup rather than a paper takeaway cup, even though she's sitting in. There's a tiny design in the foamer leaf, carefully poured. Someone took the time to make it beautiful. She drinks it slowly, making it last, and realizes this is what she's been missing. Not grand adventures or dramatic changes. Just this, the permission to sit in a cafe on a Saturday morning and drink good coffee and watch the world go by. The permission to take up space without apologizing for it. The permission to simply be. 1:15. She pays, leaving a generous tip because the coffee was that good and the barista had smiled at her, like she was genuinely pleased to serve her, and walks the rest of the way to Primrose Hill. Sarah is already there when Ellie arrives, sitting at a table near the window of the cafe they'd agreed on. She looks up as Ellie enters, and her face breaks into a wide, genuine smile that makes Ellie's heart feel suddenly full. "You came," Sarah says, standing to hug her. "You actually came. I was maybe 60% sure you'd cancel at the last minute." "I know," Ellie says, returning the hug. "I probably would have, usually. But I'm trying to, I don't know, show up more, I suppose." "Well, I'm glad," Sarah says simply. And they sit down. The cafe is warm and busy with the lunch crowd, but not unpleasantly so. There's a gentle buzz of conversation, the clink of cutlery on plates, the hiss of the coffee machine. Sarah orders the soup she'd mentioned, butternut squash with Saja, and Ellie gets the same. They both order bread, which arrives in a basket, still warm, with butter that's been left out to soften. And then they talk. Really talk. Not the performative catching up of social media or the headline summaries of text messages. They talk about real things. Sarah tells her about the breakup she went through 6 months ago, which Ellie had known about, but not really known about. How it was both terrible and, in retrospect, necessary. How she's been learning to be alone without being lonely, which is harder than it sounds. Ellie tells her about work, about how somewhere along the way, something she loved reading, words, stories, became something that exhausted her. How she's been so focused on getting everything right that she forgot why she started doing it in the first place. "I think I've been trying to carry everything," Ellie says, surprising herself with the admission. Like if I just hold on tight enough, nothing will fall apart. That I'm realizing that maybe some things are supposed to fall apart. Or at least, maybe I don't have to hold everything quite so tightly. Sarah reaches across the table and squeezes her hand briefly. "That sounds like wisdom," she says. "Hard-won wisdom." The soup arrives, served in wide bowls, with a swirl of cream on top and a scattering of pumpkin seeds. It's delicious, sweet, and earthy, warming from the inside out. They eat slowly, breaking off pieces of bread to dip in. Still talking between mouthfuls, Sarah tells her about the pottery class, demonstrates with her hands how the clay feels, how you have to be firm but gentle, how, if you try to force it, it fights back, but if you work with it, it becomes something beautiful. "It's very zen," she says, laughing at herself. I sound ridiculous, but honestly, it's the best hour of my week. Just me and the clay and the wheel, and nothing else matters. "That doesn't sound ridiculous at all," Ellie says. "It sounds lovely, like you've found something that's just yours. What about you?" Sarah asks. "What's your thing? The thing that's just for you, not for work or obligation or anyone else?" Ellie opens her mouth to answer, then realizes she doesn't have one, or hasn't had one, not for a long time. Reading used to be that, but it became work. Walking used to be that, but it became just transportation, just getting from one place to another. But then she thinks about Tuesday afternoon, sitting on the bench in Russell Square, about the robin and the terrier and the feeling of being held by the moment, about reading her book that evening without analyzing it, just enjoying it. I think I'm trying to find that, she says slowly, or remember it. I used to have it, and then I lost it somewhere along the way. But I think it might be coming back. Sarah nods like she understands completely. Sometimes you have to lose things to realize you need them, she says. And then you get to choose them again, but consciously this time. Intentionally. They finish their soup and order coffee. We're not in a rush, are we? Sarah asks, and Ellie shakes her head. No. No rush at all, and the conversation meanders to lighter things. Funny stories about Sarah's colleagues. A book Ellie edited last year that just won an award. Plans for Christmas, which both of them are approaching with a mixture of affection and mild dread. Do you want to walk? Sarah asks eventually, when they've both drained their coffee cups and the cafe is starting to fill with the afternoon crowd. The weather's held. We could go up to Primrose Hill, look at the view. I'd like that, Ellie says. They pay splitting the bill. Despite Sarah's protests that she should treat since she'd invited Ellie and step out into the afternoon, the sun is still visible through the clouds, casting everything in that particular soft light that makes London look like a watercolor painting. They walk up through the residential streets toward Primrose Hill, past beautiful houses with colorful front doors and small gardens, past a bookshop with a ginger cat asleep in the window display, past a flower shop where buckets of late-season blooms chrysanthemums and asters, and the last of the roses line the sidewalk. The hill itself is busy with Saturday walkers. People flying kites, dogs chasing balls, children running in zigzag patterns that only make sense to them. Sarah and Ellie climb to the top knot, hurrying, stopping when one or the other wants to look at something and find a spot with a clear view across the city. London spreads out before them in all its messy, magnificent glory. The towers of the financial district catching the light. The dome of St. Paul's, the BT Tower standing sentinel. The jumbled roof lines of centuries of building and rebuilding, destruction and creation, all layered on top of each other like pages in a book. It's a good city, isn't it? Sarah says quietly, standing beside her. For all its faults, for all the ways it's too expensive and too crowded and too difficult, it's still a good city. It is, Ellie agrees, and she means it. For the first time in months, maybe years, she means it without reservation. She's not thinking about rent prices or commute times or career opportunities. She's just looking at her city, her home, and feeling grateful to be in it. They stand there for a while, not needing to fill the silence with conversation. Just two friends on a hill on a Saturday afternoon, watching the light change across the skyline. Eventually, the wind picks up and it gets too cold to stand still. They walk back down, talking about meeting up again soon, really soon. Not months from now, and maybe Sarah could teach Ellie to make a simple pot. And Ellie could recommend some books Sarah might like. They hug goodbye at the tube station, a proper hug that lasts a few seconds longer than perfunctory. Thank you, Ellie says into Sarah's shoulder. For this. For not giving up on me even when I was terrible at staying in touch. Thank you for answering the phone, Sarah says back. And for showing up. That's all any of us can do, really. Just show up. On the tube back to Bloomsbury, Ellie finds a seat and watches the stations slide past. People get on and off at each stop, all carrying their own stories, their own burdens and joys, their own small magics. A woman with a sleeping baby in a carrier, a teenager with headphones and a skateboard, an elderly man reading a newspaper, his glasses perched on the end of his nose. All of them just showing up. just living their particular lives in their particular ways. And somehow, that feels both utterly ordinary and quietly miraculous. When she emerges from Russell Square Station, the early evening is settling in. The streetlights are beginning to glow, though it's not quite dark yet. That in-between time, dusk, when the day is letting go but night hasn't quite taken hold. Ellie walks slowly toward home, her hands in her coat pockets, feeling pleasantly tired in the way you do after good conversation and fresh air. And as she turns onto her street, she realizes something has changed. Not dramatically, not all at once, but definitely, certainly, changed. The weight she's been carrying, the one she couldn't quite name, the one that pressed down on her shoulders and made everything feel harder than it needed to be. It's lighter now, not gone. Maybe it will never be completely gone, but lighter, manageable, a backpack rather than a boulder. And that, she thinks, is enough. More than enough. It's actually everything. Part 6. The musician and the forgotten song. While Ellie is making her way home through the Saturday evening streets, someone else is discovering Periwinkle Court for the first time. His name is James Chen, though everyone calls him Jamie. He's 29, teaches music at a secondary school in Camden, and plays keyboard in a small band that performs at pubs and tiny venues around North London. Or at least, he used to. They haven't had a gig in 3 months. Haven't practiced in 6 weeks. The group chat that used to buzz with ideas and enthusiasm has gone quiet. And no one seems willing to be the first to say what they're all thinking, that maybe it's over. Jamie has spent the afternoon in a practice room at the school. He has a key. One of the perks of being on staff, trying to work on a song he started writing months ago. But the notes won't come. His hands sit on the keys, and nothing happens. Or rather, the same 4 bars happen over and over, leading nowhere, saying nothing. He gave up around 5 o'clock, locked up the practice room, and started walking home. He lives in a flat share in Kentish Town, but he's not ready to go back yet. His flatmates are nice enough, but there will be people in the kitchen, conversation required, questions about his day, and he doesn't have the energy for any of it. So he walks. Down through Camden, past the market stalls being packed away for the night, past the pubs starting to fill with the early evening crowd. He crosses the canal, watches a narrowboat chugging slowly past, its windows glowing warm in the dusk. Keeps walking south, no particular destination in mind. He's not sure how he ends up in Bloomsbury. Wasn't consciously heading this way. But suddenly he's on streets he doesn't quite recognize, even though he knows this area reasonably well. The light is fading fast now, that deep blue hour before full darkness, and the street lamps are all lit, casting their amber glow across the pavements still damp from earlier rain. He turns down a narrow lane, barely wide enough for a single car. Periwinkle Court, though there's no sign. Just a feeling that this is the way he should go. And there it is. A shop window glowing softly. Books visible inside, and what looks like jars on shelves. Above the window, gold lettering that he has to squint to read in the dimming light. Farers and co-purveyors of stories and remedies. EST 1847. Jamie stops. He's walked past here before, he's almost certain. But he's never noticed this shop. Never even registered it might be here. Yet there's something about it that draws him. Not aggressively, not like advertising or neon demanding attention. More like a quiet invitation, like a door left ajar with warm light spilling through. He tries the handle shaped like a sleeping fox. Smooth brass, and the door opens with a gentle chime. The smell hits him immediately. Old books, yes, but also something that reminds him of his grandmother's house when he was small. Jasmine tea and incense, and the particular scent of aged wood. And underneath, something green and alive, like bamboo growing in water. The shop is surprisingly spacious. Shelves everywhere, reaching up toward a high ceiling. Books and jars and objects he can't quite identify in the soft lamplight. It's warm after the chill outside and very quiet. Not empty quiet, there's a presence to it, like a held breath or a listening ear. Good evening. Jamie turns to see a woman behind the counter. Silver hair, wise eyes, a cardigan that looks hand-knitted in shades of blue and green. She's smiling at him with a kind of knowing warmth that makes him feel both seen and safe. "I'm sorry," he says automatically. "Are you about to close?" "I can come back another time." "Not at all," the woman says. "We're open when we need to be." "I'm Margot. Welcome to Ferris & Co." Jamie nods, not quite sure what to say. He feels suddenly awkward, as if he's intruding on something, though Margot's expression suggests nothing of the sort. "I was just walking," he offers. "Saw the light. I teach music, and I'd been trying to work on a song, but ... double quotes, he trails off. Not sure how to explain the frustration, the blankness, the feeling of having lost something he can't name. But the music wouldn't come, Margot finishes gently. "It's not a question." "No," Jamie says. "It wouldn't." Margot nods, as if this is something she understands completely. She moves out from behind the counter wearing slippers. Jamie notices. The soft kind that makes no sound and gestures toward the shelves. "Music is a peculiar thing," she says, walking slowly along the books. "It exists in the moment of its creation, and then it's gone. You can write it down, record it, but the actual music, the living thing, only exists when it's being played, or heard, or felt." Jamie follows her, drawn by her words. "That's what I love about it," he says. "But also what single quotes art ... difficult. You can't hold on to it. You can't pin it down." "No," Margot agrees. "But perhaps that's its gift. It teaches us to be present, to be there for the moment when it arrives, because it won't wait." She stops in front of a section of shelves that Jamie hadn't noticed before. These jars are different from the ones near the entrance. They seem to shimmer slightly, and when he listens carefully, which is something musicians learn to do, to listen to the spaces between sounds, he thinks he can hear something. Not quite music. More like the memory of music. Like the echo in a concert hall after the last note has faded. "These," Margot says, "are what we might call distillations of musical moments. Not the music itself, you understand, but the feeling the music created, the space it opened up, the way it made time move differently." She reaches for one jar small, about the size of a teacup, filled with something that looks like liquid gold, shot through with threads of silver. The label reads, in careful handwriting, "The Joy of Improvisation, New Orleans, 1962. This one," she says, holding it carefully, "was made from a night of jazz in a small club, when the musicians were so connected to each other and to the music that everything else disappeared. Time stopped meaning anything. There was only the conversation between instruments, the call and response, the beautiful surprise of not knowing what note would come next, but trusting it would be right." Jamie stares at the jar. He can almost hear it, can almost feel what it contains. That particular electricity when a performance is really working. When you're not thinking anymore, just playing, just being played through. "I used to feel that," he says quietly. "When we first started the band, everything was new and exciting, and we'd play for hours without noticing time passing. But lately," he shakes his head, "lately it feels like work, like pushing a boulder uphill. I sit down to write, and nothing comes. Or what comes is stale, something I've done before, nothing new." Margot sets the jar back on the shelf with care. "The well runs dry sometimes," she says. "It's natural. The problem is, we panic when it happens. We try to force water from an empty well, and that just makes everything harder. So what do you do? Jamie asks. How do you refill it? Margot considers this, her head tilted slightly. Sometimes you rest. Sometimes you go looking for new sources. Sometimes you remember why you loved it in the first place, before it became complicated. She walks to another section, and Jamie follows. This shelf has books rather than jars. Old books, new books, sheet music, biographies of musicians. Margot runs her finger along the spines, considering. Tell me, she says, not looking at him, why did you start making music? Not the official reason, not what you tell people at parties. The real reason, Jamie thinks back. He must have been 7 or 8. His grandmother had an old upright piano in her front room, out of tune and missing 3 keys. He'd sit on the stool, his feet not reaching the pedals, and just play. Nothing structured, nothing learned. Just pressing keys and listening to the sounds they made. Finding combinations that pleased him. Making up stories in the notes. I liked the way it felt, he says slowly. Like having a conversation with something that couldn't talk back but still understood. Like ... He struggles for the words. Like I could say things I didn't have words for. Margot smiles, and it's such a warm smile that Jamie feels something loosen in his chest. That's it exactly, she says. Music is its own language. And like any language, if you only use it for formal occasions, for performances and compositions and things that need to be perfect, you forget how to have an ordinary conversation. She pulls a slim volume from the shelf. It's not old, but not new either. The cover is plain blue cloth with silver lettering, exercises in musical play. This isn't about technique, she says, offering it to him. It's about remembering how to play. Actually play like children play. No goals, no outcomes, just curiosity and pleasure. Jamie takes the book, opens it to a random page. The exercise there reads, sit at your instrument for exactly 5 minutes. Play anything that comes to mind, but with one rule. You're not allowed to play anything you've played before. Not a single phrase or progression you recognize. If you catch yourself falling into patterns, stop and start again. 5 minutes of absolute newness. He reads it twice, then looks up at Margot. That sounds terrifying. It does, doesn't it? She agrees cheerfully, but also, perhaps, freeing. When you can't rely on what you know, you have to be completely present. You have to listen to what wants to come through you, rather than what you think should come. Jamie closes the book, holds it against his chest. He's not sure if he'll actually do the exercises, but having the possibility, feels like something loosening, like a door opening that he didn't realize was closed. How much? He asks, reaching for his wallet. Margot waves a hand dismissively. Consider it a loan. Bring it back when you're done with it. Or when you've remembered what you needed to remember. Whichever comes first. I can't just take it, Jamie protests. You're not taking it, Margot says gently. You're borrowing it. There's a difference. Besides, books like this want to be used. They get restless sitting on shelves. They need to go out into the world and do their work. Jamie doesn't quite know what to say to that. In his world, things have prices. Transactions are clear. Nothing is free. But Margot is looking at him with such calm certainty that arguing feels pointless. Thank you, he says instead. Really, thank you. You're welcome, Margot says. And Jamie. He looks up, startled that she knows his name, though he doesn't remember saying it. Be patient with yourself. The music hasn't left you. You've just forgotten how to listen to it. But it's still there, waiting. It always is. He nods, not trusting himself to speak. There's something about this woman, this shop, that makes him want to cry and laugh at the same time. Like something tight and hard inside him is starting to crack open. He leaves with the book tucked inside his jacket, protecting it from the drizzle that started to fall. The chime of the bell as he exits sounds like a single perfect note, clear and true in the evening air. Outside Periwinkle Court looks different than when he entered. Or perhaps he's different. The same narrow lane, the same damp pavement, the same amber streetlights, but somehow gentler, more forgiving, as if the world is willing to meet him where he is, rather than demanding he be somewhere else. He walks home slowly, the book warm against his ribs, and in his head, for the first time in months, he hears something. Not a complete melody, not yet. Just a fragment. 3 notes that feel right together. A beginning, perhaps, or a return to one. Either way, it's enough. For now, it's more than enough. Part 7. Sunday morning, and the practice of play. Sunday morning arrives with actual sunshine. The kind that feels precious in late November. It streams through Jamie's bedroom window, waking him earlier than he'd normally wake on a weekend. For a moment he lies there, disoriented, then remembers the shop, the book, the 3 notes that arrived in his head on the walk home. The book is on his nightstand where he left it last night. After reading the first few pages before sleep, exercises in musical play, he picks it up now, brings it back to bed with him, and opens it properly. The introduction is short. Written by someone named Alice Pemberton in 1983. She writes, "We spend our lives learning to play instruments, but somewhere along the way, we forget to play. This book is an attempt to remember, not to teach, not to improve, but simply to play, to approach music the way children approach a mud puddle or a pile of leaves, with curiosity, with delight, with no concern for the outcome." Jamie reads it twice. Then he gets up, makes coffee, and carries both the book and his mug to the small keyboard set up in the corner of his room. It's not much, just a basic digital keyboard on a wobbly stand, but it's his. His flatmates are still asleep. The flat, quiet, except for the hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of traffic. He opens the book to the first exercise, the one he'd read yesterday in the shop. 5 minutes of absolute newness. He sets a timer on his phone, takes a breath, places his hands on the keys, and immediately freezes. Because how do you play something completely new? Every note he knows leads to another note he knows. Every chord progression is something he's heard before, played before. His hands want to fall into familiar patterns, like water finding old grooves. He lifts his hands off the keys, shakes them out, tries again. This time he closes his eyes, breathes, and touches a single key without planning which one. C sharp, not a key he usually starts with. Good. Now another. F, then a flat. A weird combination, no clear tonality. His musical training rebels against it. But he keeps going, letting each note be a surprise, not planning the next one until his finger is already moving toward it. It sounds strange, disjointed, like a conversation in a language he doesn't speak. But there's something honest about it, something vulnerable. He's not hiding behind competence or skill. He's just ... exploring ... The timer goes off. 5 minutes already. He opens his eyes, looks at his hands on the keyboard, and realizes he's smiling. He makes breakfast: scrambled eggs, toast, more coffee, and eats it, standing by the window, looking out at the small shared garden behind the building. There's a blackbird on the fence, turning its head this way and that, listening for worms in the earth. Completely present, completely itself. After breakfast, he tries another exercise. Play a conversation between your hands. Let your left hand ask questions and your right hand answer, or vice versa. Don't plan what they'll say. Just let them talk. This one is easier somehow. His left hand starts with a low, rumbling question. 3 deep notes. His right hand responds with something lighter, more tentative. They go back and forth, and gradually a rhythm emerges. Not a beat he'd program or compose, but something organic, something that breathes. He loses track of time. When he finally stops, his flatmate Tom is in the kitchen making his own breakfast, and the sunshine has moved across the room, indicating at least an hour has passed. Maybe more. That sounded good, Tom calls through the open door. Different than your usual stuff. More. I don't know, alive. Jamie comes to the kitchen doorway. Yeah, he says, pleased despite himself. I'm just messing around. Trying something new. Well, keep messing around, Tom says, pouring cereal. It suits you. The rest of the day unfolds lazily. Jamie goes for a walk in Waterloo Park, the book tucked in his coat pocket like a talisman. The park is beautiful in the thin sunshine, the last leaves clinging to the trees, the pond reflecting the sky in shades of blue and grey. He finds a bench and sits, watching ducks paddle across the water, their movements creating small ripples that spread and spread until they disappear. He thinks about Margot's words, music exists only in the moment, and sitting here, watching the ducks, he realizes it's true of everything, isn't it? This moment, right now, with the bench solid beneath him and the cold air on his face and the sound of children playing somewhere behind him, it only exists now. In 5 minutes, it will be a memory. In an hour, it will be gone entirely, replaced by other moments, other nows. The trick, he thinks, is to be here for it. To not miss it while worrying about the next thing or regretting the last thing. To just be here, the way the ducks are here, the way the water is here, the way the trees are here. It sounds simple when he puts it that way, but he knows it's not. Knows he spent most of his life half present at best. His mind skipping ahead or dragging behind, rarely settling into now. But maybe, he thinks, maybe that's what the exercises are teaching him. Not how to make better music, but how to be more here. And maybe the music is just a side effect of that. A natural result of actually paying attention. He walks home as the afternoon begins its slide toward evening. Stops at a small grocery to buy ingredients for dinner pasta. Tomatoes, basil, garlic. He'll cook tonight, something he rarely does. Usually he just grabs whatever is easiest, eats it quickly, moves on to the next thing. But tonight he takes his time. Chops the garlic carefully, watching how the knife moves through it. Crushes the tomatoes by hand, feeling their weight and wetness. Tears the basil, releasing its peppery scent. Everything becomes a kind of meditation. A kind of presence. Tom and their other flatmate, Priya, are both home, and they end up eating together at their small kitchen table, which is usually covered with mail and laptop cables, but which Jamie clears off. Finding placemats he didn't know they owned. They talk about their weeks. Tom tells them about the nightmare client he's dealing with at the architecture firm where he works. Priya tells them about her grandmother's 85th birthday party next weekend, which her whole extended family is flying in for. Jamie tells them about the shop. It was just there, he says, twirling pasta on his fork, like it appeared out of nowhere. Or maybe it's always been there and I never noticed. I'm not even sure I could find it again. What kind of shop? Priya asks, leaning forward with interest. She's a solicitor, practical and evident, but she's also the first one to suggest going to a fortune teller or trying a new yoga practice that claims to align your chakras. It's hard to explain, Jamie says. They sell books and these jars that supposedly contain ... feelings, or the essence of stories. The woman who runs it, Magoshi, lent me this book about musical play, and I don't know, there's something about it, or about her, or about the whole place. It felt ... important. Important how? Tom asks, genuinely curious. Jamie considers this. Like it was there for me specifically. Like it knew what I needed, even though I didn't. They don't laugh at him, which he appreciates. They just nod, like this makes perfect sense. Like everyone encounters mysterious shops that appear when needed, after dinner. After they've cleaned up together and said goodnight and retreated to their separate rooms, Jamie sits at his keyboard again. But this time he didn't open the book. He just sits, hands resting on the keys, and thinks about the day. The newness of the morning exercises. The ducks in the pond. The garlic under the knife. The conversation at dinner, and then, without planning it, he starts to play. Not the song he's been trying to write. Not anything he's written before. Just ... something. A melody that sounds like sunshine on water. A rhythm that sounds like walking through a park. Harmonies that sound like friendship, like shared meals, like ordinary Sunday evenings that are actually extraordinary if you pay attention. He plays for 20 minutes, maybe longer. When he stops, his hands are tired, but in a good way. The satisfied tiredness of having used them well. And on his phone's voice recorder, he'd hit record at some point without really thinking about it. It's something new. Something that came through him rather than from him. He saves it with the date and Sunday evening. Not trying to name it or define it. Just letting it be what it is. Before bed, he reads one more exercise from the book. Tomorrow, play music for someone who isn't listening. Play for the plants in your room, or the street outside, or your sleeping cat. Play knowing that the music matters whether or not it's witnessed. Play because the playing itself is enough. He smiles at this, sets the book on his nightstand again, and turns off the light. Outside his window, London continues its endless nighttime hum. Cars passing, voices calling, a siren in the distance. The fox that lives in the neighborhood, crying its strange, human-sounding cry. And in the darkness of his room, Jamie lies with his eyes closed and realizes something. He's excited. I'm actually excited to wake up tomorrow and try the next exercise. To see what music wants to come. To practice this new way of playing that's also an old way. The way he played before he learned to worry about whether he was good enough. The music hasn't left him, Margot said. He's just forgotten how to listen to it. But he's listening now. And it's there. It's always been there waiting. Part 8. Monday morning and the crossing of paths. Monday morning brings clouds and the threat of rain. But Ellie wakes feeling unusually calm about it. She's learned over the past week that the weather doesn't determine the day, her attention to it does. Grey can be peaceful rather than dreary if you let it be. She goes through her morning routine, the bed making, the breakfast, the coffee, and finds herself humming. She doesn't recognize the melody at first, then realizes it's something she must have heard somewhere, some fragment that lodged in her memory. 3 notes that repeat. Simple and sweet. She has a meeting this morning at the publishing house's office in King's Cross, which means an actual commute rather than working from home. Normally, this would irritate her, the packed tube, the wasted time, the effort of being presentable, but today she decides to walk part of the way. Through Russell Square, up past the British Library, across the busy intersection. Taking her time. The square is quiet at this hour, just a few people cutting through on their way to work. A man doing Tai Chi near the fountain, with slow, deliberate movements. Ellie watches him for a moment, struck by the grace of it, the way each gesture flows into the next like water. She continues walking, and as she passes the British Library, she sees a young man sitting on one of the benches outside, despite the cold. He's wearing headphones and his eyes are closed, but his hands are moving slightly, fingers tapping patterns on his knees. A musician, she thinks, practicing something in his mind, or maybe just listening so intently that his body can't help but respond. It's Jamie. Though of course she doesn't know that yet. He's there because he left early for work, too restless to sit on the tube, wanting to be outside in the morning air. And he's listening to the recording he made last night, the Sunday evening piece, trying to understand what made it work, but also trying not to analyze too much. Just listening. Just being with it. Ellie passes him. And for a moment their lives overlap, the same pavement, the same cold air, the same grey sky promising rain. But they don't see each other, not really. Just two people among thousands. Moving through the city's morning choreography. Ellie's meeting is with an author she's been working with. A woman named Patricia who's writing a book about community gardens in urban spaces. Patricia is in her 60s, with silver hair cut short and practical, and hands that are permanently stained with earth. No matter how much she scrubs them, they meet at a cafe near the office, one with large windows overlooking the street. Patricia orders tea and a scone, and they spread the manuscript pages across the table between them, discussing small edits and clarifications. But partway through, Patricia sets down her pen and looks at Ellie with keen eyes. "You seem different," she says. "Lighter somehow. Has something changed?" Ellie is surprised by the observation. They're not particularly close professional, friendly, but not personal. But there's something about Patricia's directness that invites honesty. "I think I've been learning to let go of things," Ellie says slowly. "Or not let go exactly, but hold them more loosely. Does that make sense?" Patricia nods, smiling. "Perfect sense. That's what gardening teaches you, really. You can prepare the soil and plant the seeds and water diligently, but you can't force things to grow. You have to let them do what they're going to do. Trust the process." She breaks off a piece of scone, butters it carefully. "I spent years trying to control every variable in my garden. pH levels, nutrient ratios, precise watering schedules. And yes, things grew. But they weren't joyful. Not until I relaxed a bit. Let nature do some of the work. Let things surprise me." Ellie thinks about this, about how it applies not just to gardens, but to everything. To work, to friendships, to life itself. The difference between forcing and allowing. They finish their meeting with genuine warmth, Patricia giving Ellie's hand a firm squeeze as they part. "Keep learning," she says. "Whatever it is you're learning, it suits you." Ellie heads to the office, where she spends a few hours at her desk, editing manuscripts and responding to emails. But she takes breaks, remembering to stand and stretch, to look out the window at the city below. At lunchtime, instead of eating at her desk, she walks to a small park nearby Pocket Park, really barely larger than a garden, but green and quiet. She sits on a bench with her sandwich and watches sparrows hopping about, searching for crumbs. There's something soothing about their efficient little movements, their complete absorption in the task of finding food. They don't worry about tomorrow's meals or regret yesterday's. They're just here, now, looking for seeds. Meanwhile, across the city, Jamie is teaching his afternoon music class. It's a Year 9 group, 14-year-olds who signed up for music as an elective and are now having second thoughts about it. They're restless and scattered today. Monday energy making them squirrely. Usually Jamie would push through his lesson plan regardless, trying to maintain control, keep them focused. But today, influenced by the morning's exercises and the book still fresh in his mind, he makes a spontaneous decision. right? He says, closing the textbook. Forget what we were going to do. New plan. Everyone picks an instrument, anything you want. Doesn't matter if you've never played it before, and for the next 15 minutes, we're just going to play. No rules except one. You have to listen to what everyone else is playing and respond to it. You're having a conversation in music. The students look at him skeptically. Like anything. Asks a girl named Mia. No wrong notes. No wrong notes, Jamie confirms. Just listening and responding. It's chaos at first. Random noise, everyone playing their own thing with no connection. But gradually, something shifts. A boy on drums finds a simple rhythm. Someone on bass starts following it. The keyboards and guitars begin to find spaces between the beats. Mia, on violin, plays a melody that weaves above it all. It's not sophisticated. It won't win any awards. But it's alive. It breathes and shifts and responds to itself. And most importantly, the students are completely engaged. Listening to each other, really listening, in a way they rarely do. When the 15 minutes end, they're almost disappointed. Can we do that again next week? Someone asks. Absolutely, Jamie says, and means it. Because he's realized something. The exercises aren't just for him. This way of playing, this way of being present with music hits what teaching should be, what music should be. Not performance anxiety and perfect execution, but conversation and play and discovery. After school, he walks home the long way. Through Regent's Park, the light is already fading these short November days, but there's a gentleness to the dusk that makes him want to be outside in it. He passes the rose garden, the flowers long gone, but the structure of the beds still beautiful in their dormant geometry. Near the pond, he sees someone sitting on a bench, a woman with brown hair escaping from a clip, wearing a camel-colored coat, reading a book. She's completely absorbed, occasionally turning a page, sometimes smiling at something she's read. It's Ellie, though he doesn't know that either. She came here after work, drawn by the same impulse that drew him to be outside, to be in the park, to be in the gentle ending of the day. Jamie almost walks past, not wanting to disturb her reading. But his shoelaces come undone, and he stops at the next bench to retie it. And as he does, a gust of wind catches her book, flipping several pages forward. She laughs a surprised, delighted sound and looks up. Their eyes meet for just a moment. A flicker of recognition, though they've never met. Just that thing that sometimes happens between strangers. That moment of seeing and being seen. Weather's got opinions about my reading pace. Ellie calls over, smiling. Jamie grins. The universe is impatient. Wants you to skip ahead. I never skip ahead, Ellie says, carefully marking her place. Even when I'm desperate to know what happens. It feels like cheating somehow. Same, Jamie agrees, standing now, his shoe retied. You have to earn the ending. Can't just jump to it. There's a pause, not awkward, just a natural breath in the conversation. Then Ellie says, "Do you come here often?" That sounds like a terrible line. I just mean, I've been trying to walk more. Notice things more. The park seemed like a good place for that. First time in months, Jamie admits. But I think I'll come back. There's something about being outside as the light changes. Makes everything feel, I don't know, more real somehow. More present. Ellie nods like she understands exactly. That's it. More present. I've been working on that. They stand there for a moment, to strangers who feel oddly like not strangers, connected by something neither could name. The pursuit of presence, maybe, the practice of paying attention, or just the simple fact of both being there, in that park, at that moment, willing to pause and speak. "I should let you get back to your book," Jamie says finally, "before the wind decides you need to skip another chapter." Ellie smiles. "And I should probably head home before it gets properly dark. But this was nice. This conversation, it was," Jamie agrees. "Really nice." They part ways, Jamie heading north toward Kentish Town, Ellie south toward Bloomsbury. Both walk slowly, thoughtfully, carrying the small gift of that unexpected connection. That reminder that the world is full of people, many of whom are working on the same things, learning the same lessons, just in different ways. When Ellie gets home, she makes tea and settles on her sofa with her book. But before she starts reading, she sits for a moment, cup warm between her hands, thinking about the day. The meeting with Patricia and her gardening wisdom. The sparrows in the pocket park. The musician in Regent's Park with the kind eyes and the easy smile. Small moments, all of them. Nothing dramatic or life-changing. But somehow they add up to something. A different way of moving through the world. A different way of being in it. Outside, the November darkness is complete now. Street lights glow. Windows light up in the building across the way. Someone is cooking dinner. She can smell onions and garlic drifting up from a lower floor. Life continues in its endless, ordinary way. And somewhere in the city, in a narrow lane that appears when needed, Margot Ferrers is probably making tea in her impossible shop, waiting for the next person who needs to find it. The jars on the shelves glow softly in the lamplight. The books rest in their particular disorder that is actually its own kind of order. The sleeping fox door handle waits to be turned. The city breathes. The stories continue. And everyone in them, Melly and Jamie and Margot and all the others, everyone is exactly where they need to be. Part 9. Tuesday evening and the second meeting Tuesday passes in its own way for both of them. Ellie works from home, editing a manuscript about the history of bookbinding, intricate, detailed work that requires focus. But she takes her breaks, makes her tea, looks out the window. The discipline of presence is becoming easier, like a muscle that strengthens with use. Jamie teaches his classes, and the Year 9 group is still buzzing about yesterday's improvisation session. "Can we do it again, Mr. Chen?" they ask, and he promises they will. At lunch, he sits in the staff room working on the Sunday evening piece, developing it slowly, not forcing it, letting it grow like one of Patricia's garden plants. Evening comes with a sky that can't decide between rain and clearing. The clouds are dramatic, purple and gold, where the setting sun catches them. Both Ellie and Jamie, independently, decide to go for a walk. Not planning to, exactly. Just feeling drawn to be outside in that particular light. Ellie walks to Russell Square first. But it feels too familiar tonight. She wants something different. On impulse, she continues north, toward Regent's Park. It's further than she usually walks, but she has time. And the evening air, cold and crisp, feels good in her lungs. Jamie leaves from school, walking south instead of catching the bus. He's been thinking about the park all day, about the quality of light yesterday evening, about the woman reading on the bench, and the easy conversation they'd had. Not that he expects to see her again. London is vast, and coincidences like that don't usually repeat. But still, the park felt right. The rose garden is almost empty when Ellie arrives. Just one older man walking a small terrier, and someone in the distance doing sketches. The roses are gone now, but the architecture of the garden remains. The paths and beds and trellises, all bare and beautiful in their winter bones. She walks slowly through it, reading the small plaques that name each variety. Queen Elizabeth, Peace, Compassion, Just Joanna. She likes that someone thought to name roses after feelings and virtues. as if the flowers could carry those qualities. Spread them through their scent. We meet again. She turns to find the musician from yesterday standing a few feet away, smiling. He's wearing the same jacket, dark blue, slightly worn at the cuffs, and there's a messenger bag slung across his body, probably full of sheet music and teaching materials. We do, Ellie says, and finds herself smiling back. I'm starting to think we're both creatures of habit. Or the park is drawing us here for some reason. Maybe both, Jamie says. I'm Jamie, by the way. Realized after you left yesterday that we had a whole conversation without introducing ourselves. Ellie, she offers. Eleanor, technically, but no one calls me that, except my mother when she's annoyed with me. They fall into step together without discussing it, walking along the path that curves around the garden. The light is extraordinary now, that golden hour light that makes everything look painted. So what brings you back? Jamie asks. Besides the magnetic pull of the park, I mean. Honestly, I don't know exactly, Ellie admits. I've been trying to be more intentional lately, to actually do things instead of just thinking about doing them. And yesterday evening here was so peaceful that when today came around, I thought, why not come back? That's exactly it, Jamie says, nodding. Intentional. I like that word. I've been working on something similar, actually. Being more present. Playing more, in the literal sense I'm a music teacher, but also in the larger sense. Like approaching life the way you'd approach playing, if that makes sense. It does, Ellie says. I'm an editor, and I spend most of my time fixing things, making things perfect. Or trying to. But perfection is exhausting. And I realized recently that maybe good enough is actually better than perfect. Because you can actually achieve it and move on rather than staying stuck. They reach a bench knot, the same one as yesterday. But similar, and without discussing it, both sit down. The evening is cold enough that their breath makes small clouds, but neither seems bothered by it. Did something happen? Jamie asks, to make you realize that, or did you just wake up one day and decide to change? Ellie considers how much to tell him, but there's something about this stranger who doesn't feel like a stranger that makes honesty feel safe. I found this shop, she says. Last week. A strange little place in Bloomsbury that I'd never noticed before, even though I walked past there all the time. It's called Farrers & Co. Sells books and these jars that supposedly contain feelings distilled from stories. Jamie goes very still beside her. Wait, Farrers & Co. With the sleeping fox door handle. Now it's Ellie's turn to be surprised. Yes, exactly that. You've been there. Saturday night, Jamie says, turning to look at her properly. I was walking, feeling lost about my music, and suddenly there it was. The woman who runs it, Margot. Margot, Ellie confirms, a little breathless. She has silver hair and this way of seeing right through you without making you feel judged. And she gave you exactly what you needed without you having to explain what that was. Jamie finishes. They sit in silence for a moment, both processing this. The probability of this seems impossible to people, in a city of 9 million, both finding the same impossible shop in the same week, then meeting by chance in a park. But then again, Margot said, the shop appears when needed. Maybe it also brings people together who need to meet. She gave me a book, Jamie says quietly, or lent it to me. About musical play, about remembering how to approach music like a child approaches play, not for outcomes or achievement, just for the joy of it. She offered me a jar, Ellie says, called The Relief of Letting Something Go. I didn't take it. I asked if I could come back instead, and she said the shop would be there when I needed it. Have you been back? Jamie asks. No, Ellie admits. I keep meaning to, but I think maybe I don't need to yet. Like the magic wasn't in the jar itself, but in being given permission to let go. In being seen by someone who understood without me having to explain. Same, Jamie says. The book helped, definitely. But I think what really helped was Margot asking me why I started making music in the first place. Reminding me that I used to love it before it became complicated. A jogger runs past, earbuds in, completely in their own world. A group of teenagers walks by, laughing about something, their voices bright in the evening air. The park continues around them, full of other lives, other stories. This is going to sound strange, Ellie says carefully, but I don't think it's a coincidence. US meeting, I think. I think maybe the shop is still doing its work, bringing together people who are learning similar things. I was thinking the same thing, Jamie admits. And yes, it sounds impossible. But then again, so does a shop that appears when you need it. So does jars containing feelings. So does music that comes through you instead of from you. Maybe impossible things happen more often than we think. Ellie smiles. Maybe they do. Maybe we just don't notice them because we're too busy rushing past. They sit quietly for a while, comfortable with the silence, watching the light fade from gold to blue to purple, watching the park slowly empty as people head home for dinner, for the evening rituals that mark the end of the day. Can I ask you something? Jamie says eventually, and you can absolutely say no if it's too weird or forward. Ask, Ellie says. Would you want to get coffee sometime? Actually get coffee. I mean, not just bump into each other in parks. I'd like to hear more about your work, about stories and editing and what you're learning. And maybe I could tell you about the music exercises I've been doing. I feel like we're on similar journeys, and it might be nice to have someone to compare notes with. Ellie doesn't hesitate. I'd like that. I'd like that a lot, actually. They exchange numbers, smiling at the mundane practicality of it, after the strangeness of how they met. Jamie suggests a cafe in Bloomsbury for Thursday evening, if she's free. She is when they part ways. Jamie, heading north once more, Ellie south. Both feel something has shifted again. Not dramatically, not life-changingly, but definitely. Another small piece of magic, as natural as breathing, as ordinary as two people meeting in a park and deciding they'd like to know each other better. Ellie walks home, through streets that feel friendly now, rather than merely familiar. She thinks about Margot, about the shop, about the invisible threads that connect people and moments, about how you can't force these things, can't force friendship or creativity or healing or change. You can only make space for them. Show up, be present, and trust that what needs to happen will happen. When she reaches Periwinkle Court, she stops, looks down the narrow lane, and there it is, the warm glow of Farers & Co., visible tonight, inviting. She walks down the lane and pushes open the door. The bell chimes its gentle greeting. Margot looks up from behind the counter, where she's wrapping something in brown paper and string. Her smile suggests she's been expecting Ellie, though of course she couldn't have known. "Eleanor," she says warmly. "How lovely to see you again." "Hello, Margot," Ellie says, and realizes she's smiling widely. "I met someone. In the park. He's been here." To Jamie. "He has your book about musical play." "Ah," Margot says, and her expression is knowing, pleased. "Yes, Jamie. A lovely young man. Quite lost, but finding his way back." "We're getting coffee on Thursday," Ellie continues, feeling slightly foolish for reporting this, like a child telling a parent about their day. But Margot doesn't make her feel foolish. She just nods, as if this is exactly what should happen. "Good," she says simply. "It's important, I think, to have companions on the journey. People who understand what you're learning because they're learning it too. The path is easier when it's shared. She finishes tying the packaging book for someone, probably, or maybe a gerund, sets it aside. Then she comes around the counter, moving toward the wall of jars with that same sensing quality she had the first time Ellie was here. "I think," she says slowly, "you might be ready for this now." She takes down a jar different from the one she offered before. This one is larger, about the size of a grapefruit, and filled with something that looks like early morning mist, shot through with threads of rose gold. The label reads, "The courage to begin again, various origins." "This isn't about letting go," Margot explains, holding it carefully. "It's about what comes after. After you've set down the burdens. After you've made space. This is for when you're ready to fill that space with something new. When you're ready to begin." Ellie looks at the jar, at the mist swirling gently inside. "What do I do with it?" "Take it home," Margot says. "When you're ready, and you'll know when to open it. Just for a moment. Breathe it in. It won't change you, but it might remind you of what you already know, that beginning is always possible, that it's never too late to start something new." She places the jar in Ellie's hands. It's warm, warmer than it should be, and lighter than it looks. "How much?" Ellie begins. "Nothing," Margot says firmly. "This is a gift. For having the courage to come back. For being willing to see what's already here." Ellie's eyes feel suddenly warm, prickly. "Thank you," she manages. "For this. For all of it." "You're welcome," Margot says. "And Eleanor, enjoy your coffee with Jamie. Let it be easy. Let it be simple. Sometimes the most important things are." Ellie leaves with a jar tucked carefully in her bag, wrapped in tissue paper Margot provided. The evening is fully dark now, but the darkness feels gentle, protective, like a soft blanket rather than an absence of light dotted home. She places the jar on her nightstand, where she can see it when she wakes in the morning. The mist inside catches the light from the street lamp outside, glowing faintly. A reminder, a promise, a beginning. Part 10. Saturday afternoon, and the music between words. Saturday arrives, with pale sunshine and a sense of possibility. Ellie wakes early, feeling rested and alert. She makes her bed, has breakfast, then spends the morning tidying her flat. Not anxiously, not trying to make it perfect, just making it welcoming. Fresh flowers from the market chrysanthemums in deep burgundy. Clean mugs ready for tea. The Cornwall book on the coffee table. At 1:50, her buzzer rings. "It's me," Jamie's voice says through the intercom, slightly crackly. "I have a keyboard, and I'm slightly worried about the stairs." She buzzes him up, opens her door, and watches him maneuver the narrow stairwell with a portable keyboard case that keeps threatening to bash into walls. "Made it," he says, slightly breathless when he reaches her landing. Only minor architectural damage. Her flat is small but light-filled, with big windows overlooking the street. Books everywhere, which makes him smile. A comfortable sofa, plants on the windowsill, that sense of being lived in but cared for. "I love it," he says, looking around. "It feels like you." "I'll take that as a compliment," Ellie says, smiling. "Tea, please." While she makes tea, he sets up the keyboard on her small dining table. It's a simple thing, only for octaves, but it's enough. He runs his fingers over the keys without pressing down, a habitual gesture. Reacquainting himself with their geography, they sit on the sofa with their tea, and for a moment neither quite knows where to start. Then Ellie reaches for the Cornwall book. "So this is what I've been reading," she says. It's about a woman named Anna who inherits a cottage from an aunt she barely knew. She's been living in Manchester, working in marketing, completely burned out. And she goes to this cottage thinking she'll stay for a few weeks and sell it. But then she discovers the garden. She reads aloud a passage she's marked about Anna's first morning in the cottage. Standing in the overgrown garden, seeing the potential beneath the chaos. The way the author describes it, it's not just about plants. It's about life itself. About seeing what could be rather than just what is. Jamie listens with his eyes closed, really listening. When she finishes, he's quiet for a moment. "That's beautiful," he says. "The way you read it, I could see it. The garden, the morning light, everything." "The book is teaching me that growth takes time," Ellie says. "That you can't rush it. You just have to show up consistently, do the work, and trust the process. It's been ... helpful. Given where I am, can I try something?" Jamie asks. "That passage you just read, can I play what it felt like? Not illustrate it literally, but just respond to it musically." "Please," Ellie says. He moves to the keyboard, sits for a moment in silence, then begins to play. It's gentle at first, soft, tentative notes like someone stepping carefully into an unfamiliar space. Then it grows, becomes more confident. There are moments that sound like growth, like reaching upward. Moments that sound like patience, like waiting. And underneath it all, a steady rhythm, like heartbeat, like seasons turning dot. It's only a few minutes long, but when he finishes, Ellie has tears in her eyes. "That was exactly it," she says. "Exactly what the book feels like." "Music and words," Jamie says softly. "They're trying to do the same thing, really. Capture something that can't quite be said. Make the invisible visible. Or audible." They spend the afternoon trading like the Ellie reads passages. Jamie responds with improvised music. Or Jamie plays something he's been working on, and Ellie talks about what it makes her feel, what story she hears in it. It's collaboration without planning. Conversation across two different languages that somehow understand each other perfectly. At some point, Ellie makes more tea, and they eat the biscuits she bought. At some point, the light outside shifts from afternoon to early evening. At some point, they move from sharing their work to sharing their hopes. "I think I want to write," Ellie says. "Not just edit other people's words, but find my own. I've always thought I wasn't creative enough, that my job was to serve other people's creativity. But maybe I have stories too." "You do," Jamie says with certainty. "I can tell. The way you talk about books, the way you read that passage, you understand stories from the inside. You'd be brilliant at writing them. And you?" Ellie asks. "What do you hope for?" Jamie thinks about this, really considers it. "I think I want to remember that music is supposed to be joyful. Not always happy, it can be sad or angry or confused. But joyful in the sense of being fully alive, fully expressed. I want to stop performing and start sharing. Does that make sense?" "Perfect sense," Ellie says. The evening deepens. Neither wants Jamie to leave yet, so Ellie suggests making dinner just pasta, nothing fancy. But they make it together, moving around her small kitchen with surprising ease. Jamie chops vegetables while Ellie boils water. They work in comfortable silence, punctuated by small observations. Easy laughter. Over dinner pasta with garlic and vegetables and too much cheese, because why not? They talk about the future. Not in grand terms, but in small ones. Next week's plans. The book Ellie wants to read next. The piece Jamie wants to finish. And yes, when they'll see each other again, "I have this feeling," Ellie says carefully, "that this is the beginning of something. Not just friendship, though definitely friendship. But something ... larger. Like we're both starting new chapters. And somehow they're connected." The courage to begin again, Jamie says. Remembering what she told him about the jar. "Exactly," Ellie says. "Did you ever think about going back to the shop?" I should, Jamie admits. To return the book, though part of me is afraid it won't be there when I look for it. It will be, Ellie says with certainty, when you need it to be. That's how it works. After dinner, Jamie plays one more piece, the Sunday evening recording he'd told her about. She listens with her eyes closed, and when it's finished, she opens them to find him watching her. That was real, she says. That was true. He smiles. Thank you. For hearing it. For understanding what I was trying to say. When he finally packs up to leave after helping wash dishes. After one more cup of tea, after finding excuses to stay just a little longer, they stand at her door, neither quite ready for goodbye. This was one of the best days I've had in years, Jamie says honestly. Me too, Ellie agrees. Let's not wait too long to do it again. Tomorrow, Jamie suggests, half joking. Too soon? Ellie laughs. Maybe not tomorrow, but soon. Very soon, they hug goodbye, and this time it lasts a bit longer. This time when they pull apart, their eyes meet and hold for a moment that feels full of possibility. After he leaves, Ellie stands at her window and watches him walk down the street with his keyboard case, stopping at the corner to wave up at her before disappearing around the bend. Her flat feels different now, warmer somehow, fuller, even though she's alone again. It's been visited by music and conversation and connection. It's been made into a space where new things can begin. She thinks about Margot, about the shop, about the way it brought her and Jamie together, about how magic isn't always dramatic. Sometimes it's just the right people finding each other at the right time. Sometimes it's just being ready to begin. Part 11. The week after and the returning the week that follows is different from any week before it. Not dramatically, not obviously to anyone watching from outside. But to Ellie and Jamie, everything has shifted somehow. The world has more color in it, more possibility. They text throughout the week, nothing profound, just small observations. Jamie sends her a photo of a pigeon he saw that was missing a foot, but strutting around with complete confidence. Role model, he writes. Ellie sends him a passage from a manuscript she's editing about a woman learning to paint after retiring at 70. It's never too late to begin, she writes back. On Monday, Ellie does something she's been thinking about for months but never had the courage to do. She opens a blank document on her laptop and types a title, The Night Librarian of Bloomsbury. Then she writes a sentence. Just one. There's a particular quality to London at twilight in November. It's not much, but it's a beginning. Her beginning. And she saves it, closes the laptop, and smiles to herself. On Tuesday, Jamie's band group chat suddenly comes back to life. Ben, the guitarist, messages, "Anyone want to practice this weekend? I miss playing together." And instead of the silence that's been there for months, everyone responds, "Yes, absolutely. Let's do it, Jamie." Realizes that the heaviness he felt about the band, the sense that it was over, that it had failed, has lifted. If they get back together, wonderful. If they don't, that's okay too. The music doesn't depend on that specific configuration. The music is in him, always available, waiting to be played. On Wednesday evening, Ellie meets Sarah for dinner. Her friend notices immediately. "You're glowing," she says. "Actually glowing. What happened?" Ellie tells her about Jamie, about the shop, about the jar, about Saturday afternoon. Sarah listens with growing delight, occasionally interrupting with questions or small exclamations. "I'm so happy for you," she says when Ellie finishes. "Not just about meeting someone, though that's lovely, but you seem ... lighter, like you've put something down." "I have," Ellie agrees. "A lot of things, actually. I've been carrying them for so long I didn't realize how heavy they were. But yes, I've put them down. On Thursday, Jamie finishes the piece he's been working on. The Sunday evening recording has grown, developed, become something complete. It's still gentle, still quiet, but it has structure now. A beginning, a middle, an end. He listens to it 3 times, then sends it to Ellie with the message, "I think it's done. Would you like to hear it?" She calls him instead of texting back. "Play it for me," she says. Right now, over the phone. So he does. Holds the phone up to the speaker while the piece plays, and on the other end of the line, Ellie lies on her sofa with her eyes closed, listening. When it finishes, there's silence. Then her voice, thick with emotion. "Jamie, that's beautiful. That's really, truly beautiful. Thank you," he says quietly, "for listening, for hearing it." On Friday evening, they meet again just for a walk through Bloomsbury and up to the British Library, where they sit on the steps and watch people come and go. Students with heavy backpacks, researchers with specific, focused expressions, tourists taking photos, all of them seeking something: knowledge, information, inspiration. "We should go back," Ellie says suddenly. "To the shop, together." Jamie nods. "I was thinking the same thing. I need to return the book, and I want you to meet Margot properly. I want her to see that it worked. Whatever magic she did, it worked. Tomorrow," Ellie suggests. "Saturday evening, when it's twilight, that feels like the right time." "Tomorrow," Jamie agrees. That night, Ellie dreams of gardens. Not the overgrown one from the Cornwall book, but a different garden, neat and organized, with everything in its proper place. She walks through it, and as she does, she notices things growing where they shouldn't. A rose blooming in the vegetable patch, wildflowers mixing with the herbs, and instead of pulling them out, maintaining the order, she leaves them, lets them grow wild. And the garden becomes more beautiful for it, more alive. She wakes on Saturday morning feeling peaceful. Spends the day writing, adds 3 more paragraphs to the Night Librarian of Bloomsbury. They're rough, uncertain, but they exist. They're real words on a real page, and that's enough for now. Jamie spends his Saturday morning with the band. They set up in Ben's garage, the same place they always practiced, and at first it's awkward. They've been apart too long, lost the rhythm of playing together. But gradually, as they warm up, as they remember how to listen to each other, it comes back. Not the same as before. They've all changed, grown, learned different things. But that's good. The music is richer for it. As twilight approaches, Ellie and Jamie meet at Russell Square. The November evening is cold but clear, the sky that particular shade of deep blue that only lasts for a few minutes. They walk together toward Periwinkle Court, both nervous in a way they can't quite explain. What if it's not there? Jamie asks as they turn onto the narrow lane. "It will be," Ellie says. But her heart is beating faster, and there it is. The warm glow in the window, the gold lettering, the sleeping fox handle catching the last light. They push open the door together, the bell chiming its gentle greeting. Margot looks up from behind the counter, and her smile is like coming home. "Eleanor, Jamie, how wonderful. I was hoping you'd come back." They stand there for a moment, just looking at her, at the shop, at the jars glowing softly on the shelves. Everything is exactly as they remember, and yet somehow more so. More real, more present. "We came to say thank you," Ellie says. "Both of us." "And to return the book," Jamie adds, pulling it from his bag. "Though I could keep reading it forever." Every exercise leads to another question, another discovery. Margot comes around the counter, takes the book from him gently. "That's how the best teachers work," she says. "They don't give you answers. They give you better questions. She looks at them both, really looks, the way she did the first time they each came in. And her expression is pleased, satisfied, like a gardener seeing that seeds have taken root. You've both changed, she observes. Not completely, not all at once, but definitely. I can see it. We've helped each other, Jamie says, glancing at Ellie. You brought us together, and we've been, well, companions on the journey, like you said. I didn't bring you together, Margot corrects gently. You brought yourselves together. You were both ready, both open, both willing to see what was already there. I simply provided the space for it to happen. She walks to the shelf of jars, runs her fingers along them thoughtfully. The thing about magic, she says, not looking at them, is that most people think it's about transformation, about becoming something different. But real magic, the magic that lasts, is about revelation, about seeing what's always been true but hidden, about remembering who you were before you learned to be someone else. She turns back to them. You haven't changed, not fundamentally. You've just remembered. Ellie, you've remembered that you're creative, that you have stories of your own. Jamie, you've remembered that music is play, not performance. You've both remembered how to be present, how to notice, how to let go of what doesn't serve you and each other. Ellie asks softly. Was that part of the remembering? Margot's smile is warm and knowing. Perhaps, or perhaps that's the new part. The part that comes after remembering. Once you've found yourself again, you can truly find another person. Not to complete you, you're already complete, but to walk alongside, to share the journey with. Jamie reaches for Ellie's hand without looking away from Margot. Ellie takes it, and their fingers interlace naturally, easily. Thank you, Jamie says simply. For the book, for the shop, for believing that lost things can be found again. Thank you, Ellie echoes. For seeing me, for offering help without making me feel broken. For the jar, and for everything it's teaching me. You're welcome, Margot says. But remember, I didn't give you anything you didn't already have. I just helped you see it. That's all any of us can do for each other, really. Help each other see. She walks them to the door, and as they're about to leave, she touches Ellie's arm gently. The jar, she says. When you've finished with it, you don't need to return it. Pass it on. Give it to someone else who needs courage to begin. That's how these things work best. They circulate. They move from person to person, carrying their magic with them. I will, Ellie promises. Outside, the evening has fully settled into night. The street lamps are all lit now, and the first stars are visible. Ellie and Jamie stand for a moment in Periwinkle Court, still holding hands, looking at the shop. Do you think we'll come back? Jamie asks. I don't know, Ellie says honestly. Maybe we won't need to. Or maybe we will, someday, when we need different things. But right now, I think we have what we came for. They walk slowly through Bloomsbury, in no hurry to be anywhere, past the British Library, through Russell Square, where they first passed each other without knowing, past the small grocery where Mr. Patel is closing up for the night. He sees Ellie through the window and waves, smiling at the sight of her hand in Jamie's. Are you hungry? Jamie asks. We could get dinner somewhere. I'd like that, Ellie says. But nothing fancy. Just something warm and simple. They find a small Thai restaurant, family-run, with only 6 tables. The food is delicious, rich, curries and sticky rice and vegetables, cooked in garlic and chili. They eat slowly, talking between bites about their weeks, their plans, their hopes. I played your piece for my students yesterday, Jamie says. The Sunday evening one. Told them it was an example of honest music. Music that doesn't try to be impressive, just tries to be true. They really listened. And I started writing, Ellie tells him. Just a little. A story about a librarian and a mysterious shop. Very rough, very early. But it exists. That's huge, Jamie says, reaching across the table to squeeze her hand. That's the hardest part, the beginning. Everything else flows from that. After dinner, they walk Ellie home. At her building's entrance, they stop, neither wanting the evening to end. I'm really glad we found each other, Ellie says. However, it happened magic, or chance, or fate, or just luck. I'm glad. Me too, Jamie says. Really, really glad. They stand close, the cold evening air wrapping around them. And then, naturally, inevitably, they kiss. It's gentle and sweet, and it tastes like possibility. Like new beginnings. Like the start of a story that's still being written. When they part, both are smiling. I'll call you tomorrow, Jamie says. I'll be waiting, Ellie replies. She watches him walk away, then climbs the stairs to her flat. Inside, everything is exactly as she left it this morning. But somehow it all feels different. Brighter, fuller, more alive. She makes chamomile tea and sits by the window, looking out at the city. Somewhere out there, Jamie is walking home, probably still smiling. Somewhere out there, Margot is locking up the shop, preparing it for the next person who needs to find it. Somewhere out there, people are carrying their own burdens, learning their own lessons, finding their own magic. And here, in this small flat in Bloomsbury, Ellie sits with her tea and feels, for the first time in longer than she can remember, completely at peace. Not because everything is perfect, it's not, but because she's present for it, all of it, the good and the difficult, the certain and the unknown. She's here, fully, completely here. And that, she realizes, is its own kind of magic. The most important kind, perhaps. The kind you carry with you always, once you've learned to find it. Outside, the November night deepens. The city hums its endless song. And in the morning, there will be more words to write, more music to play, more moments to notice and cherish. But for now, there's this, tea cooling in her hands, stars visible through the window, the warmth of a kiss still lingering, and the quiet, steady knowledge that she's exactly where she needs to be. Part 12. 3 months later, and the continuing story winter has fully settled over London now. It's early February, and the city is wrapped in that particular kind of cold that makes you appreciate warm rooms and hot tea and the company of people you care about. Ellie wakes on a Sunday morning to pale sunlight streaming through her window. Jamie is asleep beside her, his breathing slow and even. They've been doing this for a few weeks, now taking turns, staying at each other's flats, learning the rhythms of sharing space. It's not always perfect. He's messier than she is, and she can be too particular about certain things. But they're learning, adjusting, making room. She slips out of bed carefully, not wanting to wake him, and pads to the kitchen to make coffee. While it brews, she opens her laptop. The Night Librarian of Bloomsbury is now 60 pages long. It's not done. She's learning that stories take time, that they can't be rushed, but it exists. It's real. She's a writer now, not just an editor. Both things at once. She writes for an hour in the quiet morning, adding a scene where her protagonist meets someone in a park at dusk. It's not Jamie, not exactly, but there's something of him in it. Something of their story woven into this fictional one. When she finally closes the laptop, Jamie is awake, standing in the doorway in his rumpled sleep clothes, his hair sticking up in 3 directions. Morning, he says, voice still rough with sleep. Coffee. Just made it, she says, and he pours himself a cup, comes to sit beside her on the sofa. "Were you writing?" he asks. "I was," she confirms. "Made good progress, actually. The story is starting to know where it wants to go." "That's the best feeling," Jamie says, leaning his head on her shoulder. "When the work starts to lead you instead of you having to drag it along." They sit like that for a while, drinking coffee, watching the morning light change across the room. It's become one of their rituals, these slow Sunday mornings with no agenda, no rush, just being together in the quiet. "I was thinking," Jamie says, eventually, "about the jar. The one Margot gave you. Have you thought about who you want to pass it on to?" Ellie has been thinking about this, actually. The jar has been sitting on her nightstand for 3 months now, and she's opened it twice more, once when she was struggling with a particularly difficult manuscript, and once the night before she sent her first 3 chapters to an agent. Each time, it reminded her that beginning is always possible. That courage is not the absence of fear, but the willingness to start anyway. "I think I know," she says. "Sarah, my friend Sarah. She's been talking about leaving her job, starting her own business. She has this idea for a pottery studio that would also do community classes, but she's scared. Scared of failing, scared of not having a steady income, scared of all of it. The courage to begin again," Jamie says. "That's perfect for her." "I thought so too," Ellie agrees. "I'll give it to her next time we meet. Tell her about Margot and the shop, and how sometimes we all need a little help remembering that we're braver than we think." They spend the morning lazily. Make breakfast together, pancakes, because Jamie has perfected the recipe, and Ellie loves watching him flip them with theatrical flair. Do the crossword from the Sunday paper, arguing good-naturedly about whether ephemeral fits better than transient for 7 down. Jamie plays new music. He's been working on a piece for piano and violin that he's writing for his friend Mia, the student who played so beautifully during that first improvisation session, in the afternoon. They walk to Regent's Park. It's cold, but the sun is out, and the park is busy with Sunday walkers, families, dogs chasing balls. They walk slowly, stopping often to look at things. A duck preening on the edge of the pond, a child building something elaborate out of sticks, an elderly couple feeding birds, moving in that synchronized way that only comes from decades together. "Do you ever think about Margot?" Ellie asks as they walk. "About whether the shop is still there?" "All the time," Jamie admits. "I keep meaning to walk by Periwinkle Court, just to see. But part of me doesn't want to know. I like the mystery of it. The idea that it appears when needed and disappears when it doesn't." "Same," Ellie says. "Though I think even if we can't see it, it's still there. Still doing its work. Still helping people remember who they are." They reach the bench where they first had their conversation about skipping ahead in books. By unspoken agreement, they sit down in almost the exact same spot as that first evening. "That was only 3 months ago," Jamie says wonderingly. "It feels like longer, like I've known you forever." "I know what you mean," Ellie says. "Some people you meet, and it's like, oh, there you are. Like they've been missing from your life, and you didn't even know it until they appeared." Jamie takes her hand, intertwining their fingers. "I've been thinking about something," he says carefully. "About the band. We've been practicing regularly, and it's been good. Really good. But I think that chapter might be over. Not in a sad way, just in a natural way. We've all grown in different directions. And that's okay. What will you do instead?" Ellie asks. "I want to focus on composing," Jamie says. "Maybe take some students privately. Teach people the way Margot's book taught me, through play, through curiosity, through remembering why they loved music in the first place. And I want to collaborate more. With you, maybe. Music and words together. I'd love that, Ellie says immediately. I've been thinking about something too, actually. I want to reduce my editing work. Not stop completely, but make room for my own writing. And maybe do some workshops. Teach people who are afraid to start that it's never too late. That beginning is always possible. We're both becoming teachers, Jamie observes. Passing on what we've learned. That's what Margot did, Ellie says. And her great-great-grandfather before her. They learned something important, and then they helped others learn it too. Maybe that's what we're all supposed to do. Learn, and then teach. Receive, and then give. They sit in comfortable silence, watching the afternoon light begin its slow fade toward evening. This is their time now, this in-between time. Not quite day, not quite night. The time when magic is most likely to happen, when impossible shops appear and strangers become companions and life quietly transforms itself into something new. I'm happy, Ellie says softly. I don't think I've been able to say that truthfully for years. But I am, right now, right here. I'm happy. Me too, Jamie says. Really, truly happy. Not because everything is perfect, but because I'm actually here for it. Present for my own life. A robin lands on the bench arm beside them, bold and curious. It cocks its head, examining them with bright black eyes, then hops closer. Ellie holds very still, hardly breathing, and the robin hops onto her knee, stays there for 3 heartbeats, then flies away into the bare branches above. Did you see that? She whispers, delighted. I saw it, Jamie confirms, equally amazed. I don't know what that was. Magic, Ellie said simply. The ordinary kind. The kind that happens when you're paying attention. They walk home as the light fades, stopping at the small grocery where Mr. Patel greets them warmly and asks after their week. They buy ingredients for dinner, vegetables and rice, and the good olive oil and walk slowly back to Ellie's flat, carrying their bags, talking about nothing and everything. That evening, they cook together, eat together, wash dishes together. Jamie plays music while Ellie curls up on the sofa with her book, not the Cornwall one anymore. That story has been read and absorbed and passed on to Sarah. This is a new book, about a woman who learns to restore furniture and, in doing so, learns to restore herself. Later, much later, they lie in bed in the darkness, talking quietly. Do you think we'll always remember this? Ellie asks. The shop, Margot, how it all began. I think so, Jamie says. Not just remember it intellectually, but really remember. Keep living from what we learned. Keep choosing presence over rushing. Keep beginning again whenever we need to. Good, Ellie murmurs, already half asleep. That's good. Jamie listens as her breathing deepens and slows, becomes the regular rhythm of sleep. He thinks about the journey that brought them here, the lost feeling, the impossible shop, the book that taught him to play again, the crossing of paths that seemed like chance but felt like destiny. And he thinks about all the other people in the city right now, carrying their own burdens, searching for their own answers. Some of them will find Farers and Co. when they need it. Some will find their answers in other ways. But they'll all find something if they're willing to look, if they're willing to be present, if they're willing to begin, somewhere in the city, in a narrow lane that appears when needed. Margot Ferrers might be making tea in her impossible shop, or perhaps the shop is invisible tonight, resting between visitors. Either way, the jars on the shelves hold their captured feelings, joy and peace and courage and wonder waiting to be shared with whoever needs them next. And somewhere in the city, someone is walking past Periwinkle Court for the first time, noticing a warm glow they've never seen before, feeling drawn to investigate. Their hand is reaching for a brass door handle shaped like a sleeping fox. The bell is about to chime its gentle greeting, and Margot is about to look up with those wise, knowing eyes and say, "Good evening. You look as though you've had a long day." The story continues. It always does, because stories, like music, like magic, are living things. They breathe and grow and change as they move from person to person. And the best stories, the true ones, never really end. They just pause, waiting for the next person to pick them up and carry them forward. Outside Ellie's window, London settles into its nighttime rhythm. Streetlights glow, soft and golden. Windows light up like stars in the buildings across the way. A fox calls somewhere in the gardens below, its cry strange and beautiful. The underground rumbles beneath the streets, carrying people home to their own lives, their own stories, their own small Magius. And in this small flat in Bloomsbury, two people sleep peacefully, their breathing synchronized, their dreams probably touching somewhere. In that space between waking and sleeping, where all things are possible and all stories are true, the night deepens. The stars wheel slowly overhead, and if you were to walk through the city right now, moving quietly through the sleeping streets, you might notice more than you expect. You might see the places where magic lives, in the space between buildings, in the pause between breaths, in the moment when one thing ends and another begins. You might even notice a narrow lane you've never seen before, with warm light glowing from an impossible shop. And if you're the person who needs to find it tonight, you'll walk down that lane, reach for that brass handle, push open that door, and when you do, someone will look up with kind eyes and a knowing smile and say, "Welcome. I've been waiting for you." But for now, for tonight, let the story rest here. Let Ellie and Jamie sleep peacefully, safe in the knowledge that they've found each other and themselves. Let the shop wait quietly for its next visitor. Let the city breathe its endless urban symphony. Let the stars continue their slow dance across the sky, and let yourself drift gently into sleep, carrying with you the knowledge that magic is real, not the flashy kind, but the quiet kind, the kind that reminds you who you are, the kind that helps you begin again, the kind that lives in every moment, waiting to be noticed. Sweet dreams. May you wake tomorrow ready to notice the magic in your own life. May you find the courage to begin whatever needs beginning. May you remember that presence is a practice, and every moment offers a chance to try again. Rest well. The story continues tomorrow. It always does. The end, may all who listen find their own version of Ferrers & Co. when they need it most.